Right.
Hello,
Hi.
Steffen. So here we are in the last hours of this big event that we've been able to be here in Tartu, Estonia, Why the World Needs Anthropologists.
Yeah.
And we were really happy to be able to meet you and know a little bit more about this initiative, AnthroAnalysis, that you
Right.
had,
Yes.
and the workshop that you did here. Could you tell us a little bit about it?
Yes. I'll start perhaps with saying a few things about AnthroAnalysis, which is an activity that we've had in the Department of Anthropology in Copenhagen for just over 10 years now. And I've had the good fortune of heading it for 8 of those years. And it's set up to do practical projects on applied anthropology. So it's like an in-house consultancy company within the department. And the idea is to draw in experiences of working with applied anthropology within the department, so that students and staff alike can have experiences with working with real-life applied anthropology projects, so that we can use them in expanding our teaching to include more applied anthropology and to expand the experiences of researchers so that they would remain anthropology researchers, but that they will have experiences of working with applied work also, and draw in that as part of their training, the courses that they teach and so on, and the kinds of research questions that they perhaps will want to take further in different ways. So the idea is to integrate applied anthropology to be, a part of what anthropology is about, the part of anthropology, how it's researched, how it's taught. So we set up projects where we are approached usually now. In the beginning, we had to do a lot of sort of outreach work to get companies and organizations to work with us, but now we're actually just picking up the phone because anthropology has become more and more well known in Denmark as more and more companies and professionals are getting sort of clear ideas about what to expect from an anthropological input. And we work with private companies, with public organizations, with NGOs, depending on the kinds of work that they do. We do evaluations, we do courses. We tend to do more and more longer projects with a clearer and stronger research element in them. In the beginning, it was quite short projects, which we liked to do because they were still exemplary. They could be used for examples of applied anthropology, but we think it's useful also to try to build it into larger projects. And we have opportunity to do that in the Danish funding system because we have industrial PhDs and industrial postdocs, which is public funding combined with private funding, so that a PhD, for instance, would be employed in a company and do doctoral research at the same time.
Okay, so they do
yes.
PhD while they're working for this
Exactly,
company.
yeah. So they end up having an academic degree and at the same time experience, direct hands-on experience with working within a company. So that's another way of combining it directly. It has to live up to academic standards. It has to be, they have to publish and they have to teach. So they become academics, trained as academics, and at the same time they have the experience of working in practice. So that's the aim for us. So that to get away with the split between so-called pure anthropology or sort of academic anthropology and applied work. For us, it's one discipline.
Okay, yeah, because I was going to ask you, is the point, is it that they end up just working in those companies and once they're finished their PhD, or is the point that they're going to still be in collaboration all the time?
The point is that they have a choice.
Okay.
Right, that they can do both. They're qualified to do both. So depending on the opportunities they have and also their personal interests, what kind of careers do they want to pursue? If we look at what we call candidates, which are master level graduates, the reality is that very few of them will have the opportunity to go into academic work. Perhaps it's 5% or something of all that. We train a lot. Anthropology is a big discipline in Denmark, so we train a lot of students in anthropology, and very few of them will have the opportunity to go into academic work. Now the students know that, so they are demanding applied anthropology. It's very much from the student demand, you can say, that we need to expand applied anthropology, and we need it to become an integrated part of what we teach in all anthropology departments, I think, because that's where the students they're going out to get real jobs in the real world. And if you don't want to consider that just sort of their individual obligation or individual task to find out what do I do with a general anthropology degree when I move into a practical occupation of some kind. If we want to do that, have a common discussion about that and take it seriously as a common obligation of departments to actually teach these young people, we have a co-responsibility for actually giving them the skills and the experiences and the ideas of how they can translate anthropology into practical terms.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, since this is very new or unknown even for the Spanish context and many other countries,
right.
Could we talk a little bit about a specific project or collaboration with a company? Like, what do they really do? How do they apply anthropology?
Right. What we argue when we teach applied anthropology is that they should use their anthropological skills in all steps of an applied anthropology project. So how we define applied anthropology is that we say that it is meeting a knowledge need from outside of the discipline. Now it's a need for knowledge, for insights that is defined by somebody who's outside of the discipline. And then it needs to be translated into anthropological terms. It needs to be reframed in anthropological language, in anthropological methods, with anthropological concepts. Because that's what we do, right? We take the problems that we're presented with and reflect upon them anthropologically, right? So that we try to understand, where is this problem coming from? Who is defining it? What kind of professional perspective are they talking from? And that was what our workshop today was actually about, is to teach how the very first steps of a project like that begins to turn it into an anthropological project. And then you negotiate, of course, with people that you work with on what they want to know, what you can offer them, what you can find out with an anthropological perspective and anthropological methods. You'll go through actually doing the piece of research, and you'll have to agree upon how to inform back to them, how to report back to them. And we also focus on the important element that an applied anthropology project has to produce knowledge that's actionable, right? It has to be, you have to come up with knowledge, insights, and advice that actually makes a practical difference for the people that you're working with. It has to be something that they can act on. It has to bring them into a new position where they will be able to do things that they couldn't do without this new knowledge. So we also have to develop anthropology in a way that intervention, that actually making a difference, that constructs new ideas and new solutions is part of our professional task. That we can't just be sort of distant, detached observers and commenters on the world. We have to be a much more active part in coming up with better questions and better solutions of pressing social issues.
And how about the results? How do you present results to these companies or associations, or because probably you have to do then again another process of translation, right?
Yes.
First into the anthropological language.
That's right.
And
yes.
then back to another.
That's true. Yes. And you can't come up with a standard anthropological question and tell them that everything is very complex, because that's where we're very comfortable with as anthropologists, to say, oh, but this is a very complex issue, and because we tend to look at everything and all kinds of contexts. So you have to again look upon the knowledge that you've gained and understand that out of this complexity there are bits that are more important than others for this company, right, or this organization that you're working with. So you have to be able to spot those and to present them to them in a way that they can actually understand and act upon. And that's part of the professional task, to find out, okay, what out of this knowledge that I've got is really making a difference for them or could make a difference for them. And then you have to present it in a way that you have agreed upon. It could be a report, it could be a presentation, it could be participation in a work group or whatever, various kinds of dissemination that you would sort of be able to bring the important messages across. But of course you can also take that knowledge and turn it into an academic article or a book or whatever. You can still use that anthropological insights to address an anthropological audience in a more traditional manner of sort of the channels that we have within anthropology in terms of publications and journals and so on.
It seems like a perfect combination.
Well, it can be, but of course it takes a lot of work, and you have to negotiate good agreements so that you have time to do both, because we think that both forms of dissemination, of communication of anthropological insights are important.
Yeah, and precisely time is one of the subjects when we talk about this relationship between anthropology and applied anthropology working for businesses and such, right? Because the traditional classic anthropological studies took a long time, right? And companies need a faster pace, right?
Sometimes they do, not always, and you can also, of course, you can also say that you can have your own limits to how fast you want to do things. Mm-hmm. If you think that the conditions are not satisfactory, you can refuse to do it. It's not like that you have to accept any task or any conditions that's put up. So you have to negotiate that, but basically I agree with you. Often you have to do. You have to move faster. Then you can't say that, well, I'll go away for fieldwork for a year and then you'll hear from me. You have to do things faster. But I think that's a way that we have to develop our discipline again, also methodologically, and be able to scale our methods to fit the conditions that we're actually working under in different kinds of projects, and without compromising the ability to actually gain good insights. And I think that anthropologists in these years are learning a lot from other disciplines, like designers, for instance, who are developing new formats of qualitative research, of doing different kinds of participatory methods and so on. And we have to learn from, if we don't develop it ourselves, we have to learn from them.
Yes, totally. Yeah. And you said that now you're answering phone calls, now are the companies who are calling you?
Yeah,
what kind of, what areas, telecommunications mostly, or?
No, we haven't done a whole lot of sort of IT work. I know that there's a lot of anthropologists working on that. That hasn't really been very big in our unit. But there are more and more projects that are sort of a technological character, you can say. But we are looking at more and more projects where it's not so much. Well, let me put it this way: many of the projects that we started out with were sort of out of the user-driven innovation kind of work. The discovery that was made in many kinds of innovation work that anthropologists were very useful at talking to users or potential users of a technology, or that they would come up with understanding of needs that perhaps were not expressed by users or potential users themselves. So you could send out anthropologists to uncover these needs and then bring this information into innovation work, so you would come up with new kinds of technologies that would cover those needs. And user-driven innovation has been quite important in that sense, and still is. But we tend to get more projects now where it's a question of looking at technologies that are already developed and implemented, but perhaps not functioning in the way that the inventors expected. Perhaps they're not received as well, or they're not used as was predicted. And we are trying to understand what happens then in practice. And that's one of the ways that I think we get more and more relevant questions from, or sort of a more relevant demand from outside, because organizations and companies would know that they need to know more about what happens in practice, what happens in real life when these technologies are implemented. And they have a sense of that anthropologists could be the ones to actually address that. And we agree, right? to understand what happens in daily life, what happens in practice, to take the perspective of users, of consumers, of citizens, and look with a critical eye to how technologies are implemented, and perhaps get a more realistic version of the difference that technologies make in people's lives.
Great, excellent. Well, we hope that other countries and other departments in the world are going to be feeling inspired by this great idea. We certainly were, and thank you a lot for being with us.
Thank you very much.
It was a great pleasure meeting you here in this Congress and this event. Hope to see you in the future again.
Thank you very much for having me. Thank you.